Hello, it's iBookBinding's podcast, and today our guest is Peter Geraty. Peter is a bookbinder and a bookbinding teacher from around Boston, Massachusetts, United States. Hi, Peter.
Hi, guys.
And the other guy is my co-host, Pavel. He joins us from Moscow.
Hi.
Can you tell us a bit about the American Academy of Bookbinding? Because I'm sure not all the viewers know what is this school and where it is located, when it was created, and what's your relationship with it.
Sure. Actually, I always have my AAB apron on when I'm in the shop.
I envy both you and Brenda, because Brenda also has her apron in a bit different design, but still. But when I was at the academy in 2015, the school was out of stock of this apron, so I never had a chance to buy one.
Well, I think we have some now, so go check. Yeah, so AAB, the American Academy of Bookbinding, started life as the AHA School for the Book and Story Arts. It was begun by Daniel Tucker. He happened to live in Telluride or had a house there. I'm not quite sure how that goes, but some 25 years or so ago, he started this place where the idea was to write and produce your own books. And I think it was very much a little bit more of a craftier way of doing things, not as intensive in technique. They were doing printing, they were doing binding, all of that sort of stuff. And a woman named Judy Cohn started working with him. And she sort of became, I guess, main person working with Dan. And they were teaching classes, and they were bringing people in from around the country to teach classes. And I'm not sure exactly when the change happened, but Judy and AHA moved off to become an umbrella arts organization in Telluride, Colorado. And Teeny and Ainan Miura came in and worked with Dan Tucker and created the American Academy of Bookbinding. So the timing of that I'm a little unsure about, but it's about 20 years ago, 22, 23 years ago, something like that. And then AAB became solely focused on bookbinding, on the refinement of the technique, and just trying to become a place where you could go to really learn pretty much the highest skills in the trade. It focused primarily on design and fine bindings because that was Teeny's background. Later on, Teeny left and Monique Collier took over, and she followed a similar way because she herself is a design and fine binder. And her husband, Don Etherington, came in and was teaching conservation as part of it. So AAB divided into fine binding and conservation. After a while, Don phased out because he couldn't handle the altitude. It's a high altitude there. And it wasn't simply conservation he was teaching. He was also teaching more standard bookbinding techniques as well. So Monique stepped down as director, and Don Glaister became director of fine binding. But Monique stayed on as one of the main faculty. And then I think it was 2014, I was brought in to begin a different program that was more along the lines of what Don Etherington was doing, where it's a more generalized program in bookbinding and bookbinding skills, with some conservation involved in it, but not advertised as conservation. It's called the Integrated Studies Program, called that because it's taking in sort of, well, everything from beginning bookbinding to, up through half leather and full leather bookbinding. It's involving Renata Mesmer from the Folger Shakespeare Library. She teaches paper repair there. We have Julia Miller has been coming in teaching history of books and bookbinding.
So it's a more theoretical course, or it's practical course as well?
Practical, yeah, practical as well. Julia does combine some lecture, some lecture demonstration to it, but also working on it. We have a number now of sort of steady faculty that come in and teach. And, we're teaching pretty much everything you can think of, miniatures, edge gilding, parchment over boards, tooling, not just the kind of tooling that Don does with fine bindings, more the French style tooling, painting in the shellac sizing and tooling that, but also the kind I do here, which is more the production style of just putting egg glare over the whole spine of the book and just tooling it all at one time, that kind of thing. So in my bindery, I have to know how to do all of this stuff. So ISP is sort of teaching all of this stuff, the stuff that I do in order to keep my bindery functioning. So going to the program that I teach, you would learn more about how to hang up your shingle and do everything from repairing somebody's family Bible to doing an edition, to doing boxes and portfolios, to do full leather bindings and all of that stuff. Going to Don's fine binding class, you'll learn more of the intricacies that have to do with the art and design of binding, as well as the execution of fine bindings. That's sort of where they differ. But even so, people that come to the school, they take classes in both sides of the spectrum. They just have to choose what diploma they want is all.
Yeah, and that's the next question I wanted to ask, because I know about it, that you can just pick one or two courses and go to study to the AAB, or you can choose a path and go for a diploma. And
Right.
that's two absolutely different approaches. You can mix them a bit, but still, can you tell us a bit more about this aspect of studying there?
Sure. Well, we do have, and we do continually get a group of really dedicated people that want to learn the craft and want a diploma at the end of that for the satisfaction of knowing that they have that capability of doing something really well. And neither Don nor I are going to let anybody graduate with a diploma unless we feel that they are doing really good quality work and know what they're about. So if you come out with one of those diplomas, it's not an accredited school. It's not a diploma that you can take like a master's degree on top of your undergraduate college education. but it's something that means as much to the individuals. And there are places that like to know that you have done that. So the diploma is that mark that you've come that far. Usually the way the diplomas work is that somebody may come to the school, take a smattering of a few classes, decide this is something they want to do. And then over the period of maybe 4 years, maybe more, they'll continue to come back and pick up the classes necessary to get the diploma. If they're going for the diploma, it's not just classes. They're also required to do homework. And the homework has to be submitted to Don or to myself, depending on which side of the school they're going through. And we look at the homework, we give them critiques, tell them what they've done well, tell them where they, may need to do some more work, show some more improvement. And they keep doing this throughout the process. At the end, they're required to have X number, of finished books that are then going to be judged by a group of people that Don or I get to do this. We request, like 3 people that we see as peers of our own to come in who are not related to AAB, to judge the work, to see that it does fit the criteria that we require. And Don and I are not going to send anybody to that committee if we don't feel that they're going to pass, because it reflects poorly on the school. So if you do get the diploma, you can feel pretty well assured that you'll be seen in the eyes of other binders as being someone who is accomplished. Maybe you still need to do more work, as I and everybody else I know still needs to do more work, but you'll know that you're at a certain level. There's also nothing wrong with just coming and taking classes for, over years and years. And we do have people that do that because they love it. And Stepan, you know that it is a gorgeous place to study. The facilities are beautiful, the old stone building, it's well suited. And in the midst of this box canyon in this tiny town in the Rocky Mountains with the waterfall at the end of the street, it's a pretty amazing place and lots of great hikes to do. So, you could do worse. And one of the things that happens at that school too is that it's an intensive, not by anything the teachers do, but it becomes an intensive situation because you're there for 8 hours during the day, and then you have 24-hour access to the studio. So what happens is that a lot of students, I'll go to the grocery store and come walking by at night, going home to cook my dinner, and I'll see people in there. Sometimes people like it, late as 10 o'clock. Now I'm in bed after that, so they may be there even later, but people will be in the studio late into the evening working on other books, duplicates of what they're working on in the class. They're communicating with the other students, and there's been any number of friendships that have occurred amongst the students that carry on into their life beyond AAB, because it is a very intense thing. There's no place for you to go other than hiking. So, you tend to just stay there and focus on the work. So it's a great place.
And how much time do you personally spend there annually, I mean?
I am there, from say 8:30 to 5:30 or 6, 5 days a week, and I give the students my full attention. What we usually do, and this would change a little bit from instructor to instructor, but pretty much what we're doing is we're doing some demonstration where the students will all gather around the instructor's bench. And, we'll do a demonstration that gets us to a point that we need to be, and then send the people back to their stations. And then the instructor will just spend the rest of the day walking around from student to student, giving personal attention. And as often as not, like we usually stop the number of students at 10 or 12. But when we have that many, we as often as not also have somebody who is either a graduate of AAB or somebody who's been at AAB for a long time working with us as an assistant, also going around and working with the students. So the students, they can't get rid of us. We're hanging over their shoulders pretty much all day long until we break to have them come up to the instructor's bench again to go on with the next step. So the training is pretty intensive and very personal, one-on-one, as well as with the class as a whole. So yeah, we're there the whole time.
But how do you combine managing your own shop and teaching a course like that?
Yeah, that's up until the last couple of years. Well, even this year has been a particularly difficult year, as everyone knows. In fact, AAB has been closed the entire year, and we are hoping to open next June of 21. Mm-hmm. We don't know the facts of that as of yet. There still is just too much up in the air. We're planning, trying to figure out how we can do it. Since I have employees, what has been good for me is that I can go to Telluride, and 2,000 miles away from where I work, and I can keep in contact with my employees. And this is the way it's been going as long as I've been going to Telluride, as jobs have continued moving through the shop while I am in Telluride. And of course, with the internet, I've got complete communication with them, and also with potential clients as well as regular clients while I'm in Telluride. So, I spend my lunchtime back at my apartment in Telluride, and evenings and weekends communicating with people back east. So things keep moving. People like Don Glaister have to just stop working. Because what he's doing is pretty much what he does, although he's had an apprentice for a number of years, up until recently, who was doing stuff for him too. But, so for the person where they are their shop, it's a little more difficult. But for me, I've been able to keep the shop running at a distance, even if I'm not there cracking the whip over them all the time. So. And
the courses take a few months in summer, a few months in winter, or is it all year round?
Right. Telluride has a very famous film festival and a famous bluegrass music festival, as well as a number of other festivals that happen in the warmer months of the year. So there is also a limited amount of residential space. It's a ski town. So in the winter time, a lot of people own condominiums and houses there, and they come in the wintertime and ski. So it's very difficult for us to get housing for students to come in. So basically, we open up around the end of April, 1st of May, and we close the week before Thanksgiving. In between those times, we have to dovetail a little bit around the festivals. We tend to make it work, but it's a little difficult finding lodging during festival times. The classes themselves, they either last 1 week or 2 weeks. And if they are 1 week classes, we often try to dovetail a second class. For instance, I may teach cloth repair and restoration 1 week, and then I may teach leather repair and restoration the following week. You don't have to take both, but if you want to, you can come and stay for 2 weeks. So that way it works. It's a more efficient use of the student's time. When I'm teaching the half leather class, or Don is teaching the leather class he teaches, those are 2 week classes. And so you come and plan to stay. But then Don may teach tooling in the 3rd week, which will give you the opportunity to stretch that. And in the half, the half leather class, I may teach how to do production spine tooling the 3rd week. So there are ways you can carry this on as far as you want to. And the classes cycle through. So some are run every single year. Some are run every 2 years. And then in a 3rd year, we may introduce something like, say, edge gilding, which is not needed that much, or parchment over boards is not needed that much. But we wait until there's enough people that have expressed interest, and then we fit that into the schedule.
Yeah, and that's exactly the experience I had at the academy when I was there in 2015. As far as I remember, there were 2 students who started 1 week earlier than I did with your course on beginner's bookbinding or something like that. And then yes, we all moved on to your course on box making. And then there were 2 weeks of fine binding with Don Glazer. And after that, there was something else that was interesting to me as well, but I was out of time and out of budget, so I had to leave.
Yeah, the out of budget part is a real problem. The classes themselves are not terribly expensive.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get to Telluride. It takes 2 airplanes, no matter where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And
I had to take 4.
Yeah. Well, you came from a little further away than most people. I'm pleased to say that we do get people from around the world that come here or come to Telluride.
Yeah.
There aren't many places. I mean, Ascona is something like what we are. Yeah. North Bennett Street is different in that is a 2-year commitment.
Yeah, and we have quite expensive commitment.
Yeah, it's expensive. It's a commitment. We've had students that have graduated. There's been students graduating from North Bennett Street that come to us, and we have AAB people that have gone on to North Bennett. In fact, Jeff Altepeter, who is the current director at North Bennett Street, is a graduate of both North Bennett and of AAB. So, that kind of stuff happens.
And how many people, students do you have at a time? How big a course is that?
Normally the limit is around 10. Sometimes we will have 12. It depends a bit on what we're teaching or whether we can get a good assistant to help, because that gives us more flexibility. But we're somewhat limited with space. We have a very nice large studio. If it was larger, we could run 2 classes at once. Mm-hmm. It's not large enough for that, but it is large enough for one class of 10 to 12 people to fit comfortably in.
And it's really tough to teach eight students at once without an assistant.
It is.
I tried at least once I tried to teach 14 students at once, and it was just insane. And
Oh yeah.
I was absolutely exhausted after the course.
Oh yeah, and even with the assistant, the instructors, we live in a place called the Barn, which is a house behind the school. And when we go back to the Barn, it's sometimes dragging ourselves back there because it's an intensive 8 hours and more, because sometimes you'll stay on, longer, especially if somebody's having a problem with something. You don't just leave them mid-problem. So yeah, it's very intense teaching because there's no off switch until you finally get home for the night. But it feels so good to be there doing it though.
Yeah.
Could you perhaps talk a bit about your students over the years? I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but surely some left better memories than others.
Well, Stepan was just fine.
I get this mark because of my pancakes as well.
They were good, but also Stepan was inventive too. He did a box that had like some drawers in it or something, as I recall.
Yeah.
There are students. You sometimes get a student to where they get it so quickly that it's like shoveling information into them. They can't take it in fast enough and they get it. And it's really pleasant to have somebody like that, because when you tell them, they might make a little mistake right afterwards, but they can even figure out what the mistake was and how to fix it. Sure, we get people like that. Some people are just blessed knowing how to do this. I can't say that I am personally blessed with that. I'm just hard-headed, and I'll keep working and working until I figure it out. And that can take the place of sheer talent. But we do get some people in that have sheer talent. But then we get a lot of people, like myself, who are just, they're quite capable. Once they're shown a time or two, they can just go about it, and they may come back for refinements and stuff. We get some people who really, it takes more time. We also get people coming there for different reasons. We've had book collectors, for instance, coming to take introductory classes. And it's not so much that they want to be a binder, they want to understand how it's done. And we're hoping to actually start to, in the future, to get in people from library science schools who just need to understand from a hands-on point of view how a book is put together, what is entailed in doing that. And, with that kind of thing, it's, they may never be good at it, but that's okay. And we also get people who aren't as upset by not being good at it. They just love doing it. They'll keep doing it whether they're good at it or not. And that, I get something out of all of them. It's rare to have a student who is hard to teach. It's very rare.
As you said, and as anyone can imagine, this was a tough year for the school. So what are your plans with maybe some online classes and something like that? You told a bit about next summer, but that, I guess, depends on vaccination and all the other changes that have to happen before that moment. But
right.
Maybe something else.
Yeah, Renata Mesmer did an online class where she taught some simple paper repair techniques. Um, there was, I think it was about 5 weeks, one like hour and a half, 2 hour block 5 times over a 5 week period. Um, I took it myself so I could see how she was doing it, so I could learn some things about
Mhm.
how to produce a class. And we, she and Chet, the director, and I were just talking yesterday about how we can carry on like this. I've been wanting to see video as a permanent aspect of AAB because there's so much we could do in the wintertime where we can't be there teaching.
Mhm.
And Stepan made some really nice, tiny little videos. When I say tiny, I mean like 45 seconds or something, that he took stuff with his phone, pictures
Yeah.
with videos with his phone. And after he went home, he spliced them together and he sent them. And they were great. They were more like an advertising for the place. But I think we're starting to discuss what we feel we can handle with a in terms of video, what will play in a video and be understandable. I'm a little concerned about how three-dimensional things like covering a book will work during that. It may be that we will have to have a person with a camera as well as a stationary camera. We're trying to work some of that through. We would like to get video stuff up, both for the pandemic and especially for the long term, to
Mhm.
have a library of videos that people can rely on for years to come and can augment what they've learned in classes.
Yeah.
So that's where we are with it now.
Yeah. I really hope to see this. And by the way, I still have a lot of footage from the time I studied at the academy, and I really hope I will at some moment will have enough time to start going through this footage and start editing it, because I think it can be helpful for the school and useful for the school.
I'd love to see it. I mean, the those little ones that you did, they were so light and airy in the way they were presented. Um, this really caught sort of the flavor of the school. Not that we're light and airy, but that everybody was having fun. You didn't
Mhm.
catch any of us scowling. We all had smiles on our faces and, watching the work come together. So, it was a nice way to show what really does go on. So this is some of the work we've done over the years.
Yeah.
For instance, this is the first one that I did for 21st. I think we did 40 or 50 copies of it. Red calfskin, black calfskin, 2 handmade papers from Cave Papers here in the States.
Mhm.
If you see the way the cover is designed, here is the photograph that was responsible for the cover.
Huh.
You see the bride and the groom sort of spliced together, and then you see the angles from the balcony
Yeah.
to the left and the right. And so if you look at that and you look here, you sort of get a sense of where the design comes from.
Okay, I initially thought it was some reference to smoking suit or something like that, but it's
Yes.
much deeper.
Yeah, yes, exactly. This is another one that we did for 21st. This cover is copper.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to try and figure out.
Is it engraved or etched or?
It is etched. And so the way that was done, I had to figure out how to do this. And so if you look at the pattern of the etching, not the omega,
Yeah.
but just the little splotchy parts.
Yeah.
That was sawdust mixed in with a chemical. I forget what the chemical is right now. My brain doesn't work that way. So what I did was, see if I can move to where the light catches it.
Mm-hmm.
For the omega, what I did was I cut a mylar shape like this.
Yeah. Okay.
And I cut corners out of the full sheet of mylar so it would snap over the plate in the same place every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a similar one for this arc with the circles on it. And what I did was I would put the mylar on, and then I took a Sharpie pen, one of those black markers, and I did the Sharpie in here, and I did the Sharpie across here, and then I put the cover, so there was nothing protecting these parts of the cover. I put the cover in covers, because I was doing about 20 of these at a time, into a plastic tub with the treated sawdust in there, and would leave it for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I then pulled it out the following day, brushed all the sawdust off, washed the plates, got rid of all the Sharpie, and started over again. The second day, I didn't put any Sharpie on the omega, but I did do it on here again.
Yeah.
So what you end up with after another 24 hours of treatment is that you have this area here that's actually had 48 hours worth of treatment.
Yeah.
This area has had 24, and these have not had any treatment at all. So you get a difference in the patterning.
Yeah.
And then I had to come up with a way of gluing the copper to the end sheets.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a material, the name of which I can't remember right now, but it's a material that conservators use to treat copper and bronze statues that are outside. Incrolac it's called. And I coated the back of it. I roughed up the back of it with a really heavy-duty sandpaper. And then I coated it with Incrolac. And then I took Okuwara, the Japanese paper, and I sized the paper with methyl cellulose because I wanted to attach it with PVA to the Incrolac surface on the copper, but I wanted to make sure the PVA stayed right on the surface of the paper. I didn't, I wanted to make sure that it really held well. So I sized the paper and then put them together and just, really squished them in the press. And, this book was done probably 10 years ago, and the copper shows no evidence of coming up. And then the spine is parchment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's a beautiful result of etching process, and that's a smart way to do etching with this sawdust as you described.
Yeah, that's something that I picked up. I think Daniel Kelm might have done that for something, and so I took the idea from him. So this is a book that I did many years ago for an exhibition.
Yeah.
And from its size, you can see that I had to use 2 skins of leather. No one goat skin was going to be that big.
That big, yeah.
So it's like a split board binding. But I wanted to get this sort of the texture onto it, and the texture actually follows all the way across. It's the texture basically of a river, And what I did was I took aluminum foil and crumpled it up into that shape. And I was going to press the wet leather with it, but I knew that the aluminum foil would just collapse. So I crushed it into the shape. I turned it over and filled it with gesso. And then using the gesso, I glued it down to a couple of pieces of binder's board, one for the front cover, one for the back cover. And then in some of these areas, like through here, that's just the gesso that I just kind of, put down like that and let it pull away. Once the gesso was hard enough, I could I could then cover the boards. And once the leather was still cool to the touch, but was really well set up, I ran them through an etching press in one of the studios here in the building. And what you get is that that river going across. And I did 2 copies of this book. These parts actually were cutouts. And this is paper that was airbrushed, crumpled up, airbrushed, and then flattened out, and then glued into the holes in the board. The book is called County Survey, and it talks about humans' relationship to the land. So the lines have to do with survey lines and that kind of thing. And you can see
plots of land or something like that.
What's that?
Plots of land.
Yes. Well,
they do look a bit like gerrymandering maps,
Yes, it does. It does. It also, like, it was a book of poems, and so it had mostly to do with how we relate to the land. Landscapes in the wild and that sort of thing. But surveying also was part of that. And so this is more like a river. And when you step back and look, it's, there are these sort of wings of surveyed lines and stuff like that. And you can see where the gold breaks as it's going over, a dip in the thing, that kind of type of thing.
That's what I wanted to ask you. How was it to do tooling on such a surface? Even while it's leather, it's a treated leather in a very specific way.
Yeah, actually, that part was pretty easy. If there was a break, I just let that accentuate. Like this one is a good example of where the gold just didn't take because there were dips in the leather. And I actually like that aspect of it.
Okay.
This is the book that I just had to finish gilding 42 copies of 3 edges.
Yeah.
And we had to stamp leather labels that were laid into an indention in the spine.
Yeah.
And
pretty traditional job for a bookbinder.
Yeah, I was given the design. The design was not mine. It's probably not one I would have come up with, but that's, all too often that's the case. This is another example of a design that was given to us. But it brought up some interesting problems in that the client wanted, it's Stephen King's Misery, and I've never read the book, but as I understand, a typewriter figures in the book fairly prominently.
Yeah,
it does.
So, okay, I'll have to read it.
I have a lot of scary memories because of Misery.
Oh, well, now that I've got a copy, I'm going to have to read it. I just haven't had time. But the publisher really wanted to use actual typewriter keys.
Yeah.
So he got typewriter keys. And, I'm sorry to say that a lot of typewriters from the 30s and 40s had to die a painful death to make this book come to life. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it went. So one of the key things here is that, we wanted to spell out misery
Yeah.
with the keys set where they would be in the typewriter board.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to have these holes laser cut into the board. And there's a woman who's about an hour away from me who does, her name's Sarah Pike, and she does laser cutting. She does a lot for bookbinders and woodworkers and all kinds of other people. So she cut the holes through the board, and she was able to use the same PDF that I had for the stamping die, so that I could make sure that I could stamp exactly where the holes were not.
Mm-hmm.
She made it to the exact same size and placement as the stamping die. But, when you cover a leather book, the boards will change a little bit.
Yeah.
They might shrink up a bit. They won't shrink up any amount that really shows. But in this case, if it would have shrank up much, you would have seen, the letters actually, they wouldn't be placed correctly.
Yeah.
So what I did was, for the edition, and I think there was about 45 of these, I paired all the leather and pasted the leather out onto big sheets of Mylar and let the leather dry on the Mylar, so that when I was ready to put it on, I could use PVA to connect it to the boards, which meant that they would not move. And then I could use paste to do the turn-ins and the head caps, the normal stuff. But, then so everything else was done fairly normally.
Mm-hmm.
But because the leather was pasted onto the Mylar, it didn't move again later. And it's a technique I use from time to time, depending on, on what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. So that's it for this time. We will definitely ask Peter to join us one more time to show more of his bindings and make a workshop tour. And it seems Peter will be the first of our guests who will have 3 parts on his episode of iBookBinding's podcast. So that's a new thing for us as well. As usual, we're very grateful to all our viewers. We will be happy to see some comments below this video. Special thanks to our patrons on Patreon. Thanks to your money, we're able to edit our podcasts and make more of them. We appreciate your support quite a lot. And if any of our viewers would like to join the crowd of our supporters on Patreon, you can just use the link below. Pledges start with only $1 or €1 per month. And with levels higher than €3 or $3 per month, you get some additional stuff like digitized books about book arts. If you like this video, please like it, follow us on YouTube, maybe check our Etsy store and our blog. There is also a newsletter on our website, so a lot of stuff to follow and to read. And thanks again for watching. See you next time.
It's been a pleasure. Bye.
Bye.